Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that digs into your sources, pulling out the key insights, the surprising facts just for you. Today, we're tackling something that's, well, it's been a real game changer for those of us living in Windows, but always kind of eyeing the power of Linux. You probably know the feeling. You want to use Linux, maybe for coding, maybe just exploring, but the idea of setting up a full VM or messing with dual booting on your main Windows machine, it's a hassle.
It really can be, and that's precisely where WSL, the Windows Subsystem for Linux, comes in. It's such neat tech. Basically, it lets you spin up Linux environments right there on Windows without that typical VM overhead.
Yeah, it started pretty simply, didn't it? Just a command line thing initially.
But then WSL2, the second version, came along and it just exploded.
Yeah.
Now there's this whole range of Linux distributions you can run.
Right. So, okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is to walk you through some of the standout Linux distributions for WSL. We'll look at how there are different package managers, stability services, all that stuff. We want to help you figure out which one might be the right fit for what you need to do.
And what's really fascinating is how WSL has just smoothed out that whole process. It makes Linux so much more accessible, Like one of our sources said, it can be a real gateway to jumping into Linux with both feet for people. And choosing the right distro, that really can make a big difference to your workflow, how you learn stuff. So yeah, this is super practical.
Absolutely. Very practical. Okay, so with that, let's dive into our countdown. Top 5 Linux distros for WSL. We'll start at number 5 and work our way up. All right, kicking us off at number 5 is Kali Linux, the cybersecurity specialist. Now, Kali, it's basically the name you hear when you think ethical hacking, security analysis, right?
Oh, definitely. It's the go-to for a lot of cybersecurity pros. And the WSL version packs in that whole suite of tools, penetration testing, forensics, vulnerability checks, everything. Plus, you can use the WinKex package to get a graphical desktop, which is pretty cool. It makes it feel more like a full Kali box.
Okay, that sounds powerful, having all that ready to go inside Windows. But here's where it gets really interesting and maybe a bit scary. There's a critical safety warning we need to hit right away, this WSL-based Kali. It is not perfectly walled off from your main Windows 11 system.
Exactly. That is such a crucial point. There's a real risk. If you're running tools that expose Kali to outside networks, maybe setting up a honeypot or doing active scanning well, a hacker could potentially find a way through, like privilege escalation or some other vulnerability, and boom, they could potentially get access to your actual Windows system.
Oof, yeah, not good.
Not good at all. So the strong advice, and our source emphasizes this, is keep that kind of serious hacking or pen testing strictly on separate, isolated machines. Don't do it directly on your main Windows workstation via WSL Kali. Be cautious.
Okay, very important warning there. Let's shift gears completely from Kali's focus to something different at number 4, Arch Linux. We're calling this the Advanced Tinkerer's Playground. Arch has this reputation, right? Bare bones, rolling release, super customizable, really popular with Linux veterans who like to build their setup just so.
That's its whole appeal. You get total control, and you're always on the latest, sometimes bleeding edge packages. A lot of that comes from the AUR, the Arch User Repository. It's this huge community-driven thing with tons of software.
And the surprising twist for WSL. Our source actually says getting Arch running on WSL is maybe the simplest way to tinker with the OS on Windows 11.
Yeah, it sounds counterintuitive for Arch, doesn't it?
Right, but apparently you just pop open a terminal and type rich install Arch Linux. That's it. Kind of wild.
It really lowers the barrier to trying Arch out, even if you're just curious.
Okay, so from Arch's tinkering freedom, we move to number 3, NixOS. This is the declarative dream for developers. If you thought Arch was customizable, NixOS takes it even further, aimed more at hardcore developers, coding enthusiasts.
Yeah, NixOS is unique. Its big thing is being declarative. You basically write a configuration file that describes the entire state you want your system to be in, packages, settings, everything. And NixOS figures out how to make it happen. It gives you atomic updates, easy rollbacks if something breaks, and access to this absolutely enormous Nix package repository.
Wow, okay, so infrastructure as code, but for your personal machine.
Pretty much. It's really powerful for maintaining consistent development environments.
But there's a catch for WSL users right now, isn't there?
There's no official WSL image for NixOS yet, so you have to use a community-built module or, import the tar.gz file yourself using PowerShell.
So yeah, as the source puts it, definitely far from the ideal distribution for general users.
Yeah.
A bit more involved.
Definitely more involved setup-wise. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, For someone already deep in Linux app development on WSL, the power and reproducibility NixOS offers could be a huge win. It solves a specific set of problems really well.
Makes sense. Okay, sliding into our number 2 spot, we have Fedora, the classic fast release experience. This one comes from the Fedora project, sponsored by Red Hat. It's known for combining a solid package manager with a quicker release cycle than some other stable distros.
That's right. And it has a good reputation for stability, too. Often compared well against Ubuntu or other Debian-based systems in that regard. It finds a nice balance, not quite as bleeding edge as Arch, but faster updates than, say, Debian stable.
And something changed recently that makes it more relevant for WSL users, right?
Yes, exactly. Fedora only just recently released an official WSL image. Before this, if you wanted Fedora on WSL, you usually had to go for a third-party option, often a paid one, like the Fedora Remix image.
Ah, okay. So having an official free image now is the big plus.
Definitely opens it up. The main sort of slight drawback mentioned right now, compared to the really established WSL distros, there might be a bit less WSL-specific documentation out there for Fedora just yet.
Right. So if you hit a weird WSL-related snag, finding a quick fix might take a little more digging than for, say, Ubuntu.
Potentially, yeah. The community is growing, but it's still catching up on that front compared to the giants.
Gotcha. Okay, and that brings us to number 1, the top spot, the one many consider the gold standard for a painless setup, Ubuntu. Ubuntu is, it's almost the default Linux for a lot of people, isn't it? Known for being easy, stable, great hardware support.
Absolutely. And all those positive qualities carry right over to its WSL version. It just works well. But I think what really cements its golden standard status specifically for WSL is the sheer amount of documentation and community support focused on running Ubuntu inside WSL.
Ah, okay. So it's not just general Ubuntu help, but help for the WSL context.
Exactly. People have been running Ubuntu on WSL for years now. So whether you're troubleshooting a weird network issue, trying to get started, or doing something complex like GPU acceleration for machine learning, chances are someone has written a guide or solved that exact problem.
That makes a huge difference when you're just trying to get things working.
A massive difference. Plus, Ubuntu has built-in support for snaps, Canonical's package system.
Ah, yes, snaps. People have opinions on snaps. Our source mentions they have their annoying quirks.
They definitely do sometimes, yeah. But having that snap support built into the WSL image out of the box gives you another way to easily install software, which is handy.
So this raises an important question then. If someone is totally new to Linux and they're starting their journey using WSL, is Ubuntu the clear recommendation?
I'd say absolutely yes. For a truly painless setup, the ease of use, that mountain of support, the huge community, it really is the most straightforward and reliable starting point for exploring Linux via WSL.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So what does this all mean for you listening? I think this deep dive really highlights the variety out there. You've got the security focus of Kali, the tinker-friendly Arch, the developer-centric NixOS, solid Fedora, and the super accessible Ubuntu.
The best one really isn't a single answer. It totally depends on what you're trying to do, how comfortable you are technically, what your project goals are.
WSL gives you the options, which is fantastic, but picking the right distro really shapes that experience. Now, we've been talking up WSL quite a bit, and it is amazing technology, but we also need to be realistic. It does have its limitations, right? It's not a magic bullet for everything Linux.
That's a really crucial point to make. WSL is fantastic for development for running Linux tools quickly alongside Windows apps, but it's not designed to fully replace a dedicated Linux OS for all heavy workloads. Think about like long-running server applications or really complex DevOps setups with lots of interacting services. WSL might struggle or just not be the right architecture for those.
Yeah, our source author even mentioned they still use full-fat virtual machines, things like VMware Workstation Pro or even hypervisor like Proxmox for those kinds of really demanding tasks.
Right. It shows that sometimes you still need that complete isolated OS environment for heavy lifting or specific server roles.
It's all about using the right tool for the specific job at hand. Yeah. WSL is one powerful tool, but VMs and bare metal still have their place. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, hopefully you've got a much clearer picture now of the top Linux distros for WSL, their strengths, their quirks, and what kind of user they might appeal to. WSL really does offer this amazing shortcut to Linux power within Windows.
It really does. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this kind of seamless integration that WSL offers is genuinely changing how we think about computing. It's bridging these two worlds, Windows and Linux, in a way that opens up so many new possibilities for developers, IT folks, students, everyone.
It's pretty remarkable. And that leads us nicely into our final provocative thought for you to chew on. As tools like WSL continue to evolve, how much further will they blur the lines between operating systems? And more importantly, what new projects, what new learning paths does this kind of flexibility unlock for you personally?